Hello, this is Wes Bridle, and this is another Kingdom Calling Economic Update video. All of these videos are meant to give you a snapshot of what's been happening in the economy over the last few months. They all follow up to the Coming Storm video, which we did 2 years ago, which gives you a really big picture of what's happening in the economy. If you go back and watch that, which I highly recommend, you'll see that we've predicted everything that's happening right now, the crisis that's kind of bubbling up in the air. We told you about this a long time ago, and now we just use these videos to kind of keep you updated. I noticed there's 80 or 90 of them the other day, so we're just making a few of them at a time. But again, if you haven't watched The Coming Storm, you really need to do that because that gives you the big picture, and there's a link to watch that for free right near this video. So let me jump in. There's just kind of random facts. I thought this was interesting. Brazil, which is very much thought of as an emerging market because it hasn't been a traditional wealthy country, should overtake the UK this year as the 6th largest economy in the world. I guess India is right behind them, and I think the prediction was India will overtake Brazil next year, but they'll both overtake France for the 5th largest economy in a couple years. And I think they're expecting all these countries to overtake Germany, which is, I think Germany is probably the 4th biggest. Yeah, it must be 4th biggest economy, but that Brazil and India will both overtake Germany by 2020. So you have the U.S., China will overtake the U.S. probably by then. They're predicting. What's going to happen, of course, is China is going to take a big crash, much as the U.S. did in the 1930s, but then China will come rising up. They may have a new government at that point, who knows. But there's tremendous potential there in the Chinese economy, but at the moment their market is way overheated from a lot of malinvestment by the Politburo, the people that run that country. Okay, in Libya, so we sent troops in there, or sent bombs in there, whatever we did into Libya. There's an Al-Qaeda flag flying, at least there was a month or two ago, over the Libyan headquarters, so that's lovely. Japanese, the tsunami that kind of wiped out Japan, caused a big nuclear mess. I found this really interesting. The first bit of debris from that had hit British Columbia, and the largest pile of debris, which is the size of California, is set to arrive into the North America in 2014. I just found that stunning. I don't necessarily think that's dangerous. I don't have a clue, but I just found that kind of fascinating that there's a mass of debris floating the size of California, so I thought I'd share it. Information exchange laws. The U.S. went in a few years ago and got basically strong-armed all the countries of the world to exchange tax information so they could try to squeeze every last drop of taxes out of people. The United States is one of the very few countries in the world that thinks its citizens are its own milk cow, and whatever money they make anywhere in the world should be taxed by the U.S. Most countries of the world do not do that. And so they convinced all these countries to do that. Well, there's always serious ramifications that are not thought of when you pass an economic law. That's just how economics works. So a couple of interesting stories that are very sad. There was this has all happened in Europe. There was a guy, I think his name was Mr. Shaw, I think he was in the UK, who had been, there was a $300 million kind of deal, and I think the UK started looking into it to see if he was evading taxes. Turned out everything was legit, he wasn't doing anything wrong, but Zimbabwe, it had to do with Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe found out about it, and Zimbabwe, if you're not aware, I mean, they've been for a long time an economic basket case, and so they found out there's money here, so they froze this guy's $300 million. And according to this story, at that time, he still could not access his money. Zimbabwe had it frozen. He's now got to deal with Zimbabwe's court system and everything to hopefully get his money back from Mugabe. I mean, that's probably not going to happen. So here this guy's devastated because of these stupid laws. And so that's one of them. Another one was there's a guy in Belarus who the same laws were used by Belarus to get information out of Ukraine, and a bureaucrat just kind of sent the information because those are the laws that are set up, and now they've got this guy in jail. He wasn't a financial He wasn't evading taxes or anything, but he was collecting money because he was a dissident from, I forget the guy's name, the dictator of Belarus. Belarus is the last dictator in Europe until the two new ones in Italy and Greece were just put in last month. And so this guy, he's a political pariah in that country. He was someone that we would think is a good guy because he doesn't like the dictator. Well, now they've used these money laws that the U.S. set up around the world in order to throw this guy in jail. So the U.S. likes to say it's for democracy all around the world. Well, the guy that was for democracy in Belarus is now in jail because of the U.S. strong-arming the rest of the world. Okay, and riots. So there's riots everywhere. Surely you've noticed. We have all across Europe, people really upset about the austerity that's being pushed down. We've got riots all across the Middle East because of the the Arab Spring, what they call it, wanting to kick out the dictators there. We've got riots in Asia over food and wages, that sort of thing, because things are slowing down in China. There's a lot of that. We've got riots in the United States because they're not even sure what they're rioting about, but they're really upset, these Occupy Wall Street people. So you have a lot of that. If you saw the Black Friday videos, people are rioting and doing all kinds of crazy things over towels being on sale. If you think that stuff going on in third world countries won't happen in the United States because we're more civilized, but then you view and see people going at each other's throats over towels being on sale, just think when food is hard to find, how quickly the society can devolve. We're not nearly as evolved and enlightened and whatever above those kinds of things as you might think when those situations happen. I think I mentioned in the other video, Britain is telling its people to, across Europe, to prepare for riots. This is a very real thing. The powers that be really understand these things are about to happen. Hope you do too. Europe trying to force Swiss to send Italians money. This is really sad. People of Italy have money in Switzerland legally. They didn't break any laws to put it there. But the bureaucrats in Brussels want Italy to be able to put extra taxes on that money, and so they're strong-arming Switzerland to send that money back to Italy. This is a very scary precedent, and there's more and more of these things happening where the governments feel like your money is their money. And so there's more and more of these things happening. Whenever you hear stories like this, you think, well, I don't care, that sounds good, they should get money because, that doesn't affect me, so I don't sympathize with that at all. But you have to realize that the way these things always work is they start closing in, and the beginning efforts never affect most of the people. By the time they get to affecting most of the people, they've really strangled the whole system enough where you can't complain at that point. If you don't have principles against these sorts of things, even when they don't affect you, then by the time they get to you, it's going to happen. Again, I'm not political. I have no plans of voting on the next election. I'm just sort of watching as an interesting passerby because these things are all happening in front of our eyes, and life is absolutely going to change in front of us. But if you're for a strong economy and that sort of thing, if you're for, people generally being wealthier and happier, these things are very, very bad. If you're more for watching what's going on in the world and just sort of being interesting, then it's kind of fascinating. Okay, Europe might trying to force the Swiss. Okay, I cut that one. Portugal raided pensions to meet deficit targets. So now we have, I forget, at least 5 countries I think that I remember that have raided people's pensions in order to help with their country's budgets, including the U.S. It wasn't really considered a big deal when the U.S. did it to government employees, but during that debt ceiling talk, they absolutely did it, and then they replaced the money right when it was over. But if you think your IRA and your 401k is your money, read the documentation on it. Read the laws. It's your money and the government's money, and they get to make all the rules. So don't be surprised when they come after that. My guess is that will definitely happen. That's it for this first video. I'm going to do another one on world events. I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, if you haven't seen the Coming Storm video, there's a link to do so for free. Thank you very much.